Hey guys, I get asked this question a lot because on these videos, you get to see me pouring a lot of concrete floors, but I get asked, why do you guys hand screed your concrete floors when you have a power screed? And I'm going to answer that question here in a minute. And I want to know your thoughts. What would you do if you was us in the same situation? Maybe if you had the same experience as us, would you have the same result as we have, or would you make the same decision that we do, is what I want to know. So we got a 28 by 24 garage here. Not big as far as our standards go. It's probably like an average size garage here in Maine. And we're going to pour this concrete floor. It has just a slight slope to it from the back to the front. It's 4 inches thick. As you can see, we're pouring on 2 inches of styrofoam. That's state code. We got 3,500 PSI concrete. We got fiber mesh in it for reinforcement. And we're using our typical water reducer for slump control, meaning we can pour a little bit looser slump because we have the water reducer in it. So the question is, why would we decide just to hand screed this instead of getting the power screed off the truck, hooking it up, putting the battery in it and using the battery power screed? And the simple answer for us is it's as much or even less work just to grab the 14-foot screed we got right there sitting on top of the concrete wall in front of you, that magnesium screed. It's probably actually a little bit less work just to grab that off the truck and screed the concrete floor with that than it is to actually, get the power screed off, get it all put together, screed the floor, take it apart, clean it, and all that. So, I mean, it's right on it's on the borderline for us of the size of the floor. It comes down to the actual size of the floor and how much effort it's going to take us to screed it. Now, I did time the actual screed time it took to do this floor. You'll see that in a minute here. As soon as we start screeding, I'll pop that up on the screen. You can check it with during the video if you want. I only cut out a few of the parts where we weren't actually doing anything on this job. So you can see it's about a 15 or so minute video. So it doesn't take us very long to pour a concrete floor or a garage floor when it's only this size. But when we get to the screeding, the first thing, probably what takes us the longest on a job like this is to actually get the concrete poured out, is what you're seeing us doing right now. And because this was 28 feet deep, we used our little extending chute. Now, we use that chute for that. If you're going to buy one thing, if you pour concrete floors like we do and you're going to buy one thing, I'd buy an extension chute to put on your trucks like this. That's going to save you a ton of pulling. The trouble is, I guess from what I've heard, is a lot of people in different states, the concrete companies don't let you chain the chute around the truck chutes like you saw us do. So you'd have to use like a sawhorse and just set it on the sawhorse. And that's going to save you a lot of pulling with the concrete and get your concrete closer to where you need it. We're lucky. The companies that we use allow us just to chain around it. Now, if we were pouring a really stiff slump and the concrete's going to build up in the chute, there's a chance all that extra weight could break the piston on the chute. But with the slumps that we pour, the concrete flows down the chute pretty good, and we're pretty careful not to overload anything. So as I was saying, getting this thing poured out, first is what takes usually the longest. This takes longer than it does to actual screed the floor and bowl float it. So we came in early. We set up the laser. You can see the laser off there to the left, and we set our grades with that using the receiver. Mark the corners and the middles with a pencil, and then we snap a chalk line. That's kind of what Darren's doing right now, is he's magging the edges, magging a pad flat and smooth with the chalk line. That's what he's going by, if you can't see that on the wall. And then we get all those what we call those grade pads magged in place. We actually have a pin in the middle. It's kind of hard to see right now. Let me see, once Darren gets out of the way, you can kind of see it there right in behind Darren. It's got a yellow cap to it. And then we can set that to grade, our grade in the middle, whether the concrete's flat, whether it slopes. So then we can just mag a pad around that. You'll see Darren doing that in a second. And that's basically what takes the longest to do these. Now, with only 3 of us, you know, our summer help isn't here yet. School's just about getting out, so we'll get a school teacher that's worked with us for, you know, almost 30 years once school gets out. So we'll have him for 8 or 10 weeks in the summer. And then the guy we've had the last 2 summers, who's kind of what we call full-time, he actually joined the Army Reserve, so he's off doing his boot camp stuff this summer. So we're going to miss him all summer long. So here we are. We get 90 some odd % of this poured out, and then we all work together to get our grades set. And that's what we're going to go by. So this is basically how you pour a concrete floor. I mean, you got to have something to go by here. You got to have a laser. You want this thing, you know, if the owner wants it flat, which is rare for us, we usually always either slope it from back to front, or we have a center drain and we'll slope the floor to the center drain. Rarely do we ever just pour a garage floor flat. What happens here is, in Maine, is when you drive in the garage and the floor is flat, especially in the winter, and if that thing, you know, if you get snow or ice on the car and that stuff starts melting, it's just going to puddle up on the floor instead of kind of want to run to the door and out the door or to the center drain. So there's Darren now. See, we set that to grade using the laser. There's like a rim, like on the rim of a hat that you can set your receiver stick on, and then once that's to grade, you just tighten it around a piece of rebar. All right, so here's the start of the screeding. We screed our center pad, and we're going to use that very similar to it the same way we're going to use the outside pads, and then we're going to be off and screeding on this thing. So here's the beginning of screeding the floor. Now I'm gonna set the total screed time right up here in the left-hand corner from what it took, and then you can check it if you want with the video. All right, so going through the video, here's what I came up with: total screed time for screeding the whole garage floor by hand like this, 3 minutes and 17 seconds. Now, what we would have to ask ourselves: are we going to save a ton of time? Like, are we going to cut that time in half by using the power screed? And obviously, no. The power screed, if you've never used one before, you're not going to go super fast with that. You're just going to create a lot of humps or dips in the floor. You're going to want to go at a pace about similar to the pace we're going here, just what I call slow and steady. And what that does is that allows your guys behind, like I'm the guy raking right here. It's going to allow your guys raking time to make sure the concrete's at the right level, in behind the power screed. The same way was making it right for those guys. Now I'm on the screed and Luke's actually raking the concrete. You can see we're a little bit low, so he's pushing a bunch up, and he's making sure that we're not low as we're pulling that concrete back with the screed. And it's the same thing with a power screed. Just the only difference is you got one guy operating the power screed and usually 2 guys raking the concrete, versus 2 guys screeding like this and 1 guy raking the concrete. So that's your main difference right there. But as experienced as we are, we were taught to screed concrete this way. We call it kick screeding. This is really, really easy for us to do, even though it may look a little difficult. When we screed concrete with a 14-foot screed like that, when there's 2 of us, and then we're kicking in our footprints as we go, that's really pretty simple for us to do, especially at the right slump of concrete. I just want to take a minute here as you're watching us screed to introduce the sponsor of this video is the Concrete Underground. Now, the Concrete Underground is my private training for me being able to teach you how to do concrete like this. So if you're looking to learn how to pour a concrete floor for a garage like this, or maybe even do a concrete slab, or learn stamp concrete, how to repair concrete, anything to do with concrete flat work that you see us do in our videos, then I would join the Concrete Underground. I have tons of training videos in there. My slab courses in there, my stamp courses in there, my epoxy courses are in there, my foundation crack repair courses in there. So you get the whole bundle of courses plus a lot of extras in there if you want to learn how to do concrete. So Concrete Underground, link for it is down in the description below. All right, so as we get to the very last section, the very last piece of this garage floor, And you can see the time up there on the top, 3 minutes 17 seconds. It really doesn't seem possible to get this floor screeded in that little amount of time, 197 seconds. But it is, and I realize not a lot of you know how to screed concrete by hand like we do. And a lot of people now have these, you know, the power screeds, the vibrating screeds. So I just kind of wait till the end of the video. I got a couple questions I ask you at the end of the video here, right on the job. But as I bull float this, you can see I'm bull floating. I'm going to speed up the bull floating maybe just a tiny bit quicker than what you'd normally do it live. But I want you to see the bull float aspect of this, to see that just how nice and flat it is underneath that bull float. I've said this in other videos, you know, I see guys bull float and there's gaps under the bull float where they're going to grab shovelfuls of concrete and they're shoveling it back under there to try to flatten it out. Or if the two ends of the bull float don't touch simultaneously, if you don't see a little bit of a line from the end of the bull float, then there's a hump there somewhere, and you know that's just not going to go away. You're going to have that hump in the floor. But so you either have a dip under it or you have a hump, is what I noticed. But why I'm showing you this is because there's none of either. As we screed the concrete by hand, that stuff's really nice and flat and level as we go. No one's coming. I'm not asking Luke or Darren to, hey, throw some concrete in there so I can smooth that out a little bit, or trying to work out a hump because the ends aren't touching. This is the way concrete should look after it's screeded while you're bull floating. You know, a lot of times with the right slump, you can go down and back once and get it nice and smooth. This time here, I'm going down and back on the same part twice just to make sure it's really smooth for the guy that's going to stay and power trowel this. That's important. It makes power troweling so much easier if you don't leave any like rock holes or rough areas. Most of you that don't finish concrete probably wouldn't know that. And then another little tiny trick is, you can see Darren coming behind me, just smoothing out the bull float mark. Where I pick up the bull float, it leaves that little mark, and if you just let that go and get hard in the sun, that's just going to be a little bit harder to finish later on. You're going to have to work a little bit harder to get that smooth. So much easier to do it right now, right after you get done bull floating. And then there's certain ways to bull float based on how you screed the concrete. You can see I'm kind of running the bull float with what looks like the lines of the screed. So that helps flatten the concrete out even a little bit more as you go. Just another little trick there that I teach you in the Concrete Underground. So finishing the concrete, power troweling is a whole other aspect of learning the skill of concrete. Actually, if you want to learn how to power trowel concrete like that, that just doesn't come natural. You just don't go rent a power trowel if you've never done it and come here and show up and stick it on the floor and expect to get a really nice finish. It's just not going to happen. You got to have some type of experience. There's definitely a timing aspect of the finishing that is probably one of the most important aspects of finishing, is the timing. Not getting on it too early, not getting on it too late, and you're not going to know that without some type of knowledge and experience. I do go over a lot of the timing aspects in all my trainings to try to help with that. The easiest part is actually working with a crew like us, being there on site, being able to feel the concrete, being able to step on the concrete when the timing's right. That's probably the quickest way to learn if you ever have that opportunity to do that with somebody. But that's really the best way to learn how to finish concrete. And depending on what type of finishing you're doing, if you're finishing by hand versus finishing with a power trowel, if you're doing a broom finish versus a stamped concrete finishing, it's all a little bit different. It's all a little bit different based on the temperature of the day, how hot it is, if it's windy, if it's late in the fall, in the springtime, and it's only 45 degrees out versus 80 degrees out. That stuff all matters when it comes to concrete. So that's what it looks like. And then, after you get done bull floating, then we'll just leave that until it's ready to power trowel, which is probably going to be, in the sun like this today with the temperatures, probably at least an hour before we touch that with the power trowel. All right, guys, that'll do it. So what do you think? something this small, is it worth putting a power screed on, or is it just better screeding it by hand like this? I mean, I'll time out in the video how long it took us to hand screed that, but I'm thinking probably a little bit less than 5 minutes, which probably be about the same with the power screed. And you know, as far as the effort goes, probably is a little bit more effort to do it this way, but then I don't know, it's pretty small. Just let me know what you guys think in the video, and we'll talk later. Thanks. Bye bye.